This is pretty big news here, although I also will talk about how this is kind of a bit of propaganda, but appeals court, and this is even coming from CNN, even CNN reported this. Appeals court says Biden administration likely violated the First Amendment, but narrows order blocking officials from communicating with social media companies. Federal appeals court on Friday said Biden likely violated First Amendment in some of its communications with social media companies, but they also narrowed a lower court judge's order. But they're saying, well, I'll just keep reading because they'll probably go through it. But U.S. Fifth Circuit Court ruled certain administrations, namely the White House, Surgeon General, the U.S. CDC, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, coerced or significantly encouraged social media platforms to moderate content in violation of the First Amendment in its efforts to combat COVID-19 disinformation. Now, we know now that a lot of stuff that was being thrown around, especially in the first couple years of the pandemic, a lot of what was being called disinformation was true. A lot of what was being called truth was not truth. Now, it was a huge fucking hodgepodge of it. And they were telling social media companies to cover it all up and just push out whatever the CDC was saying, which this court has ruled as a violation of First Amendment rights. Because the truth is, communicating on Twitter should be pretty equivalent. I mean, Twitter is the public sphere, sadly, and now that it's owned by one billionaire and not a group, but it is the public sphere, and just because it's online and not a bunch of people sitting in a courtyard shouldn't really matter in terms of your freedom of speech. And of course, I've been heavily suppressed on Twitter simply for being anti-war and anti-capitalist. And that's what I want to get to about how this is a little bit of propaganda. But let me save that for 1 second. The 3-judge panel said the preliminary injunction issued by the U.S. District Judge Terry Doughty in July, which orders some Biden administration agencies and top officials not to communicate with social media companies about certain content, was vague and broader than necessary. But in general, this latest judgment is saying that they violated the First Amendment by telling, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those, to not allow COVID disinformation. Now, a lot of what they're calling COVID disinformation was fucking disinformation. There were loads of people throwing around disinformation of all levels. But the problem is that some of that disinformation has turned out to be true. And some of the people who were spouting what was called the truth at the time were full of disinformation. They might not have known it, but they were. So this idea that the government is going to go to social media and tell them what the truth is, we know the U.S. government lies all the time, like all the time. Under Trump, when the pandemic began, under Biden, doesn't matter. Under Obama, fucking constant liars. So them deciding what's truth and what's not is hugely problematic because they are liars. They are propagandists. That is their job. And it's hugely problematic. Now, my problem with this article, part of my problem with this article is that, and the court ruling is, the government has been working to sideline those of us speaking the truth or criticizing empire or criticizing war for years, way before the pandemic began, way before, mainly starting in 2016. Those of us who supported Bernie Sanders at the time, like that type of thing, heavily suppressed, starting basically right after that election. My Facebook was heavily suppressed, shadow banned. My Facebook was my largest platform at the time, 330,000 followers, but now none of them. And ever since 2016, so this is way before the pandemic started. Ever since 2016, nobody sees shit. It shows it to 0.1% of my followers. Same with Instagram, pretty much the same with YouTube, but maybe more than 0.1%, more like 5 or 10% of my followers, subscribers on YouTube are shown my videos or recommended my videos. Same on Twitter. Even my emails are, when I send them out, they put a warning at the top that says this might be spam. And that is not because of COVID disinformation. That is because I'm anti-war. I'm anti-capitalist. I'm anti-extraction by the rich. I'm anti-inequality. I'm pro-justice. And all of that is what has made me so aggressively suppressed. So the idea that this appeals court is putting forward and that this article is putting forward is that the only time that our government has told these entities to suppress info was around COVID, which is bullshit. They were doing it around plenty of other things. Plenty of other things. Those of us revealing the truth about Russiagate were heavily suppressed in every way as well.